Welcome to the Dental Implant Practices podcast, where each episode will explore how to integrate dental implants into your practice and into bone, with your host, Dr. Philip Gordon.
Hey guys, thanks for being listeners of the show. Go to dentalimplantpractices.com and find all of our resources. Also find us on Facebook, Dental Implant Practices page on Facebook, and go to iTunes and leave me a review on iTunes so we can help spread the message. Thanks. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Dental Implant Practices podcast. I'm your host, Philip Gordon, and today it's a huge honor for me to be interviewing Dr. Paresh Patel. He is a upstanding colleague and a fantastic leader in implant dentistry and does some teaching and practicing and has about done it all in implant dentistry. So, Paresh, thanks for being on the show today and taking some time out with me.
Oh, absolutely, Philip. I'm glad you asked me.
Now, so that I can get it right for all of our listeners, would you mind telling me a little bit about your where you did your schooling, some of the things you're doing in your private practice, how you kind of got to your practice to where it's at, and then some of the teaching and courses that you're giving across the country.
Okay. So I'll start with the beginning, I guess, story for your multi-part question here. So now, I live in North Carolina, and I grew up in Greensboro. And being here in North Carolina, obviously, your dream is either to go to Chapel Hill or go to Duke. And my dream was to go to Chapel Hill. So that's where I went for undergrad. And then, from there, I went straight into Chapel Hill Dental School. So born and kind of raised here in North Carolina. So stayed here, enjoyed here. And then from there, I just decided that North Carolina is where I wanted to practice. So my wife is also a dentist. She happens to be 2 years ahead of me. So we needed to find a practice that would allow for both of us to work together. So we came across an opportunity that was a father-son dental office that we could either purchase or, work our way into. So we decided to buy that. So it gave us the opportunity for both of us to practice in one location together. So that was in 1996, and it's in Lenoir, North Carolina. And most people will say, well, where the heck is Lenoir, North Carolina? And, what do they do? So it used to be the furniture capital of the world. For Broyhill, Bernhard, Singer, Kincaid, Lazy Boy, these are all kind of the brands that came out of Lenoir. But, as everybody sort of can envision, as labor costs start to go down elsewhere in the world, a lot of this furniture industry moved overseas. So we have a lot of patients that, are making $10, $11, $12 an hour, nothing out of the ordinary. So I call it, sort of Main Street Practice USA. Probably have the same challenges everybody else has. I have nothing, spectacular that I do differently, except for that, we embraced this other avenue to help patients, which was implants. And, I'm very much a latecomer, I guess, to the party. I didn't place my first implant until 2008, so almost 12 years after I graduated dental school. And most of that was, I truly do love Chapel Hill, and I love the dental school there. But, in 1996 to 92, if you were an undergrad in dental school, it's kind of like you were shown maybe, got to see in real life an implant. And that was about it. And they said, this is an implant, stay away from it. Don't touch it. Don't dream about it. Don't think about it. So there was no carrot dangling in front of you to become an implant dentist. In fact, there was really no good pathway to do it through the school for an undergraduate. But I started off placing mini implants. And they said, why in the world mini implant? How did you start with that? My practice is blue collar America. So I got pretty good at doing a few things, and one of them was extracting teeth. And I never got good at dentures or partials. I think I'm okay at it. But I think some of the things we were taught in dental school were probably incorrect, that you had to border mold and take these impressions and set teeth over the ridge, and, all the principles of biostatic design. You deliver your patient a product, and they should be happy. And I would do all that. I'd deliver the patient the denture. And Miss Smith would say, I think you got the other Miss Smith mixed up with me, because this denture doesn't fit, or it's too big, or it feels like a Frisbee, or it makes me gag, or I can't taste my food. So you name it, I probably heard it. So I became very frustrated as a removable prosthodontist, for example. And I started looking into something to help these patients. And for a few bucks, I could throw in these little one-piece mini implants. And that seemed to really satisfy this huge patient population I had of denture wearers. So that was really a springboard into doing something a little bit more. So I signed up for a MaxiCourse I went through that full year continuum, and that really helped me feel comfortable with making the decision to say we'd like to offer, standard body implants for our patients with maybe a little bit more exotic products. When I say exotic products, crown and bridge, or full arch of crown and bridge, or a fixed hybrid prosthesis on top of these implants. And, as everything else in life is, you get a good sort of base didactic knowledge, but then you got to go into the office and sit in your operatory and actually perform. So getting the staff educated through, these programs was really valuable. I also did the Mish Continuum, and, as many workshops as I probably could find, I signed up for, and, just kind of jumped into the deep end of the pool. So it was very, very quick before we had, several thousand implants done. And, as the practice matured and as materials mature for implantologists, we don't do as many implants as we once did. Before we do maybe 500 to 1,000 minis a year. Now, if I place a mini implant, it may be only 10 of them a year. And that's because we have really shifted our practice and our sort of scope to say, can we cost effectively either offer from the very beginning a fixed prosthesis for our patients? Because I think that's what patients really want in the end. They don't really want a denture that has something to grab onto. They're really there for teeth on top of something that makes them have that ability again. So we find pathways, and we'll talk about that a little bit later if you want to allow patients or a way for them to work towards an end goal financially for having implants and as close to teeth as they can get once again.
No, that sounds great. That sounds like a great story. I think a lot of people can resonate with that. You get out of school and they don't teach you much, and you graduate and you want to offer more solutions. And, some people that takes, that's their own different journey to realize that maybe implant dentistry is good for them. And, I did the same thing. And I graduated in 2009 and they still weren't teaching to place implants. But, a couple years out of practice, I thought I need to get into this. I want to be able to offer better solutions. And going through a lot of those courses and seeing a lot of that, you have to put the time and energy into it, and you have to have the passion for it, because there is a huge demand for it, and patients, we can offer them a much better service. And so what I wanted to talk with you about was, I know you do a lot of training and teaching. I was really wanting to talk about kind of full arch with you, if we could. I know, like you talk about, different pathways to getting people fixed teeth, and you say you're not doing many implants as much anymore. Kind of talk about the full arch and start working me through some of that. I know you do a lot of teaching on the subject, so kind of tell what you're lecturing about with full arch, and then let's walk into how that actually applies to practice and what that means.
Okay, sure. And to me, full arch is going back to this all on X concept. To me, the surgically oriented general practitioner is going to be very good at this, because the general practitioner is the guy that, understands teeth and space. And when I say teeth and space, where do the teeth need to be for a denture setup, essentially. And that's what we're trying to go after. Certainly there's different levels of care that need to be provided here. I mean, you have to understand basic, denture principles first. Then you have to have, as you said, passion for surgery. Just because you can place a single implant may not mean that, you should place the full arch of implants, because there is other things which, in 1 hour worth of time we'll never get to, but it doesn't mean that you can't go learn how to do it. That's the key right there. And then do what's most comfortable in your sort of hands and your scope of practice right there. But, now that the materials have changed drastically, before when we start talking about some sort of solution over implants for a full arch, we were typically talking about an acrylic hybrid. So some sort of titanium bar on X number of implants tied together and then wrapped with acrylic and had denture teeth on it. And, I don't know how many you've seen, Philip, but, it's a great service. However, fighting for that 15 to 18 to 20 millimeters of space per arch sometimes can be a difficult task. And sometimes a lip, when I say that's a transition line, needs to be addressed, and that becomes an issue. Or just sometimes if we're fighting for room and then we run out of restorative space or a surgical space to place the implant, we need to know where's the happy balance in there, or should we just consider an all-white prosthetic, not a pink and white prosthetic for the patient. So there's a lot of decision-making that has to go in place, and a lot of sort of, background training that needs to happen. But that doesn't mean that it's not within the scope or it's not an attainable goal for a general dentist to say, I need to consider offering this for my patient. But, the thing that sort of really drove me into this was that now that there's this monolithic zirconia product that's out here to, and I shouldn't say replace, but add to your choices. Instead of doing acrylic wrap hybrid, could I do a total zirconia product? Now we don't have to worry about chipping, breaking, staining for the patient, right? And for the doctor, because there's going to be less times that the patient has to come back, because nothing should pop off of this because it's not a denture tooth bonded or, retained onto a piece of acrylic, which is then retained on top of an acrylic titanium bar. So to me, this really stood out as, this is a game changer in my mind. And it also started to reduce the amount of that space, right? So now we can take that 15, 18 millimeters of space we need for this product and squeeze that down to, 10 millimeters, for example, because the product is beauty and the substructure mixed together. So it's the bulk strength of the zirconia product that makes it strong, durable, resisting of chipping and breaking, but it's also what makes it beautiful looking because it's the color that you want. The white is the white part of it, and then the pink is stained into the zirconia as well. So to me, I think that's where now all of a sudden we have something that can satisfy long-term the patient's vision and satisfy sort of the general dentist's vision of, is there a pathway for me to consider how to do this right here? But it's full of pitfalls, and I've certainly made my share of mistakes on that as well, which unfortunately, you have to correct or figure out how to correct. So, developing a relationship with a skilled prosthodontist in your area, or developing a relationship with a prosthodontist and a surgeon, whether that's a periodontist or an oral surgeon, that can help you with a few of these things because, they've learned just like everybody else. Because if there's not communication between the two, surgeon puts implants in place, and then the prosthodontist says, hey, Mr. Surgeon, you didn't leave me enough room for this. Well, ultimately, then it's the prosthesis that, ends up getting cheated. When I say cheated, if we needed 18 millimeters of space for the acrylic, then the titanium bar, then the acrylic, and then the tooth, and we only have 12 or 14, well, then each one of those little parts, gets cheated a little bit, which ultimately means something fails sooner than we want, or, Miss Smith's denture tooth pops off on the 4th of July weekend, and you get an angry patient on Monday or Tuesday of that weekend that, she couldn't go to the barbecue. So that's not to say that zirconia, is got all the answers. It certainly is a product that helps, but, needs the proper sort of treatment planning and sequencing and surgical thought process as well as prosthodontic thought process.
I don't even really try to present the hybrids anymore. I really just lean on, because the lab costs are about the same. I really just, if someone wants to do fixed in my office, it's going to be that monolithic zirconia. And that's just the choice I made after seeing pitfalls and failures of the acrylic over the titanium bars. And like you said, that technology and zirconia was a game changer.
Yeah. And to me,
but that's just a personal choice on my end of it. I don't want to deal with it, and I don't want to disappoint patients when they're popping off teeth and splitting those in half. So, they're paying a lot of money for that.
I've seen some really beautiful hybrids, but I've never seen a hybrid that looks great after 3 years, and I think that's just a limitation of the material. If a tooth hasn't popped off, it's going to wear. If the tooth doesn't pop off or wear, then you're just going to have some sort of staining either on the denture tooth or something of the pink acrylic acrylic that absorbs some stain. So, I don't want anybody to feel like I'm knocking an acrylic hybrid. I'm just saying that everything has its shortfall, and you got to decide which shortfall you're most agreeable with. I mean, zirconia to me is a beautiful product and monolithic. Some people don't like it and say, it's awful flat looking, doctor. It doesn't reflect light like, if it was layered on top of that. And sure, you could have the laboratory do that. It adds an additional cost and say, I'm going to only layer across the front. I'm going to have all the occlusion, perfect on the solid piece of zirconia on the posterior, or not posterior, but on the lingual side of the restoration. But, nonetheless, somebody's going to bang into that, and there's a chance that some of that layered porcelain could pop off. So we don't go into that exotic of a product. We just go with the pure monolithic product with no hand layered porcelain over the top of it.
And for me, it's not that we can't do acrylic, but like you talked about, there have been some changes in technology. Another change that happened around that time was, the Zest anchors. And so my version of acrylic is the removable Zest locator denture. So that's my version of say, hey, if we're not going all on 6 with fixed zirconia, and if those are issues, then we're going down to maybe 4 removable with locators. Is that Is that kind of, that's the other option nowadays we have with, I still consider that full arch solution because, it's implant retained and it snaps in, but, those are easy to repair because they come off. So can you talk about, how you're incorporating those removable options in your office? I assume you're doing some of that as well.
Sure. I mean, absolutely. I mean, so, the locator is a great product, and I think everybody would agree, sort of the gold standard, now that it's pink, it's the pink standard. I don't know. But nonetheless, a great product that deserves, some attention and some space when we're talking about full arch solutions here. So our pathway is that if we have to talk about, 4 implants and maybe a overdenture for the patient, the cost now becomes an issue that they can't afford the fixed solution right away. So what I like to present to the patient is, Ms. Smith, I'm going to give you sort of the B solution. And when I say B solution, it's not teeth that are going to support or being supported by the implant. The denture is just retained by the implants, like you said. So we want to make sure they understand that this is just going to provide the prosthesis, your teeth, a degree of ability not to come flying out of your mouth when you either talk or chew, but it's not going to allow you to chew like it's going to be a fixed set of teeth that are supported by the implant. So if you get a raspberry seed underneath there, you press down, your denture is going to go out because it's actually supported by the tissue. But it's a way. So I like to get the surgery done with the surgery. Ms. Smith, if we need 6 implants to support a fixed set of teeth, let's figure out how we can put 6 implants in place. And then we'll make you this snap-in denture. But at least we have 2 sleeping implants that are there. So I don't have to come back and add these for you later on. And if things change in your budget and you can afford it, we'll apply whatever you paid towards this minus. And I just charge a nominal fee of $200 a locator. I said if you have 4 of them, that's $800 that I can't, give you back towards a fixed set of teeth. But we'll apply the rest of the dollars towards it. And then you can pay the difference. And we'll talk about going into a fixed solution where there are going to be teeth that are supported by the implants that when you bite into something, I don't care if something gets underneath that bridge, you're not going to feel it because the force goes to the implant, not to your gum tissue. And I think that's a reasonable way to move patients forward. So, the other thing that happens, and you do it enough like you or I do or anybody else does, somebody pays you more than a denture fee. In their head, they got teeth. That's the limitation. So as soon as they get some implants and a snap-in denture, you can just see the lack of satisfaction in their mind when they have that issue where, Doc, I'm chewing and food's still getting ready. Doc, this is nice, but I know you turned it into a horseshoe shape, but it still covers more of my mouth than I want, or whatever the story happens to be. And it's because they've paid you more than just the fee for a denture. And they have a hard time grabbing that this is still a denture. That's why the word denture is still in this overdenture, Ms. Smith. And I have them, repeat after me. I was like, Ms. Smith, repeat after me. You're still getting a denture. And she looks at me with those, softer eyes, and she doesn't talk. And I said, no, I need you to talk to me and nod your head and say these words after me. I will still have a denture. The only purpose of the implant is to give the denture something to hang on to. And finally, they start to get it. But, after doing this enough, you hate to have patients that they know what they're buying. They just don't understand what they're buying, if that makes sense. So now we tell them that, we're going to do the surgery. We're going to plan it for a fixed case, and we're going to stop here for finances, and we're going to figure out a way at some point for you to come back. And I would still say, going with that approach, we now probably do, 75 to 80% of our cases are going to be fixed, and only 20 to 25% of our cases are removable. And some of that is also because, we have started to really squeeze our costs down. If we look at the Clear Choice example at $25,000, I think that's an excellent service that they offer. Now, some people don't like Clear Choice. Some people do. We won't get into that. But whatever the philosophy is there, they offer a certain flavor of ice cream, and it's $25,000. Let me take extra teeth today to give you X number of implants, which I think for them is typically 4. And then we'll give you an acrylic wrap hybrid. If you want this zirconia product, it's whatever. And I don't know their pricing. So if I say something inaccurate, it's not intended to hurt Clear Choice. But let's say it's $2,000 more. So it's $27,000, Ms. Smith. So I actually love Clear Choice because Clear Choice spends a great amount of effort and time to educate the patient. So if they come to me and say, Dr. Patel, I've had a consult. I just felt like there wasn't a place I wanted to be. What do you do? And of course, they see my website and that's why they're there, or they've talked to other patients and that's why they're there. And, we say this is what we do, but, we don't have a hard fixed regimen. I have to look at your scan and figure out what for you makes the most sense biomechanically. And if I can feel confident that this is the right version of implants and teeth for you, then I'll do it. If not, then we'll talk about some sort of augmentation and go from there. But if I just need to take out teeth and smooth away some lumpy bone and place some implants, whatever number that is for you, and give you a zirconia or full arch of teeth that won't chip or break, hopefully, if our fee is $20,000, that to me is still a huge sum of money. But if I could break that down into sort of different payments for the patient, that $12,000 is due the day that we do the surgery, Ms. Smith. You're going to wear a conversion, which is a plastic set of teeth, while the implants heal in the bone for the next 6 months, and then we'll start the process of making you your next set of plastic teeth, then the final product. But this process could take anywhere from 10 to 12 months. You can make the first payment of 12, and then you can break the other payment of $8,000 up, starting 6 months later, that you'll pay $1,500 or $2,000 every month until we're finished. And I feel confident about that because I still have to cover the $8,000 difference, but they're going to be in that new PMMA for a little bit, and then we got to wait for the lab to fabricate the zirconia crown. So by the time they pay up, we're at that point that now I'm getting ready to deliver the final zirconia product to them.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to do it. I've got a Clear Choice here in Kansas City, and they do a ton of advertising, and we get a lot of second opinions on that. And I can usually, squeeze under their prices because I don't have the marketing costs that they do, and I'm not a machine that has the overhead like they do. So I can usually offer, they do 4 implants, I do 6. They do 25,000 to 27, I do 20. And so I can, they've got a cookie cutter approach. I've got a nice, friendly staff that caters to their need, and we can break up the payments kind of like you do. So I think that's a great way to go about it. Now you talked about, are you temporizing those cases? So you'll take out all the teeth, put in the implant, smooth the bone, and then put them in just a regular denture to heal. Is that right? And on that, let me add, I really love the idea, like you said, even if you're doing a snap-on zest on 4, just bury 2 more in it, and you can convert later if you want to, and you can save bones. So that's genius. But
yeah,
how are you provisionalizing there?
Yeah, we convert every case. I don't like burying the implant. I like implants that are tied together from day one. And then there's a couple of reasons for that. One is obviously patient satisfaction. Who doesn't want to have teeth that are screwed into the implant the day of surgery, so they don't have to take out their denture and put it into a cup on their chair side? Because that's one of my sort of selling phrases, is that, Ms. Smith, my goal for you is to have teeth that you do not take out of your mouth and put into a cup by your nightstand every night. And that's my goal from day one. And from my side, from the selfish sort of point of view, is that I want those implants to have a converted prosthesis on top of it. I'm tying all 6 or 7 or 5 or whatever number of implants, 4 if it has to be an all-in-4 case, together on the day of surgery. So one implant obviously gets a little bit of strength from the next one. So they're tied together. The other part of that is that my converted prosthesis now becomes my IVJ, my intraoral verification jig, because if that prosthesis, let's just say for whatever example, it's not 100% passive the day that I put it in, but it should be. But let's just say it's not. As that implant goes through its sort of cycle of, primary stability going down the curve and the biologic stability climbing up, that prosthesis is actually going to pull that implant into being passive over the course of time. And we're not talking, head wide open on the Panorex. We're just talking, how do you know that this is passive, doctor? And the reason is because I converted the day of. So, 4, 5, 6 months later, when I unscrew that converted prosthesis, it has a lot of good things here for me. It tells me about aesthetics. It tells me about teeth and space that we talked about originally. But it also communicates to the lab a few things. I can just do a quick, sort of a wash impression underneath it with some light body, and then take an algin over the top of that. And then I can unscrew the prosthesis with the wash material in it, just like I was doing a reline on a denture or a partial. And I can take that back to my lab, and we can mount that on an articulator up against the opposing cast. And then, within a few hours, give that back to Ms. Smith, screw that back into Ms. Smith's head. But now because I have had the underside with the reline, the alginate over the top of that, poured that up, put the analogs in it. Now I have a master cast, which I know is 100% accurate because it was taken with the prosthesis that they have EJ. So I've saved a step. I also now recorded with a putty matrix, teeth in space. Where are the incisal edges of these teeth? Where are we with this? This is kind of the initial roadmap here. So whatever we like about that prosthesis, we keep, and whatever we don't like, let's say we converted it and got the midline, 2 millimeters off the distal left. Well, now I know that when I start having my lab technicians set the teeth, that the teeth all need to get shifted 2 millimeters to the left. Let's say the incisal edge is nice, then we want to keep that. Perfect. If we don't, then we can look at the photographs and look at our stone cast with the putty index and say, hey, we'd really like to bring these teeth down about 1 millimeter, or maybe the mold that we selected for the patient in that denture we converted really wasn't the right mold. We needed to go from a 10 millimeter tooth to a 12 millimeter tooth, so we can now increase the size of our tooth if we needed to do it. But the goal is that now we can do a setup on a triad rim for the patient. So the next visit 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later, or 4 weeks later, whenever you want to bring them back, you unscrew their prosthesis, and now you can screw in this triad rim that's got the cylinders in it with the teeth set on top of it. And A, you now know, is this 100% passive? And B, this is your wax try-in, and it should be pretty darn close to where you want things to be. Now, Ms. Smith might have a few things to say, or you might have a few things to say. I still don't like the way that this is set up, or I don't like the way your lip position is, or whatever it happens to be. Then you can make those notations or draw on the teeth and, go back for another try-ins. But typically, we are really, really close by doing it this way, by using the converted set of teeth. So it's my goal always to do as much of the heavy lifting as I can on the day of surgery, which makes for a long day, but it makes subsequent visits so much easier. And now we're just dealing with tissue level prosthetics from, the day of surgery forward. Ms. Smith, I'm glad I got all your implants in place. I'm glad I got your denture converted. The next time I see you when we unscrew this, I never have to pick up a needle because everything's going to be from tissue up. And it is. It's absolutely, nice to not going to have to jam something underneath the tissue every time we see Ms. Smith and go through all these impressions over and over again. So, the first time I did this, it was like 12 visits to get a BruxZir bridge back. And I don't think it's a fault of the laboratory, whether you're using Vital or whether you're using somebody else. There's plenty of good laboratories that do this kind of work out there. Is a limitation of my process of doing it. So we started looking at the process and saying, if we'd like to pay ourselves $500 an hour, or pay myself $500 an hour as a surgeon, I like to pay myself $500 an hour as a prosthetist. The surgeon is winning, but the prosthetist is losing because the prosthetist has got 12 appointments that he chewed up and walked away feeling frustrated in the end. So we started looking at the process to say, where can we get better at this? Where's the communication, from the surgeon to the prosthetist? Obviously I'm talking about myself as I'm both, but that's really where the limitation was. I think if I can get more doctors to embrace the concept of converting the day of, it sounds like a monumental task, but if you've picked up a locator, to me, picking up 4 locators underneath an overdenture is more stressful than doing a conversion with your local laboratory technician's help.
You covered a lot of things there that I'll do some subsequent questions follow up, but you're making a lot of great sense. It's all about streamlining that process. Now you talked about getting it tissue borne after the first day. So does that include placing the multi-units the day of surgery? Is that what you're talking about?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So getting the implants in. Yep. Getting the implants in, getting the multi-units, and then attaching on top of that. So everything moving forward is multi-unit up.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. So, you have to invest a little bit into your practice because, the next question that's going to be, well, doctor, how do you know what cuff height to get? And the answer is, you don't know. You can make an educated guess, but you hate for the whole case of success to be dependent on, well, I ordered, 2 straight and 4, 17-degree multi-units, and the 17-degree I ordered all, 2.5 millimeter cuff height. And then come to find out, I really didn't need 2 straight in the front. I needed 17 degrees in the front, and I needed another 17 for the canines. I needed a 30 for the posteriors, but I didn't have those. So I just ended up, putting regular old tall healing caps on the patient and reamed out some space in the denture and said, Ms. Smith, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. I need some extra parts. But I mean, I'm telling you, to go back and go under the tissue on Miss Smith after a lot of this work has already been done, it's not fun for her. It's not fun for you.
It's not, and it's probably not. You're disrupting healing and causing trauma. Yeah. So it's probably not the best for the health either. So so are you doing a lot of these guided surgery, or at least with a guided plan to some degree? Obviously.
Yeah, I'm a open flap kind of general dentist surgeon. I mean, obviously we have the advantage of the ICAT in our office, just like everybody else probably has some advantage of whatever brand of cone beam they have. So I like the word guided planning. To me, if I'm taking out teeth, I don't want to order a guide because I don't really know what bone I'm going to end up left with. You can have an educated guess, but once again, you don't have a perfect plan. Plus, for me to, and I've done an in-sequence case, and it's beautiful, and it was absolutely phenomenal. I mean, the aesthetics was just, I couldn't just stop staring at the darn thing. It was that great for the conversion of the day of, but
it comes with the price.
The bill, yeah,
comes with the price.
A lot of heartburn. Yep. So the $5,000 bill was too much for my practice to make sense with. Let me put it that way. So I'm not saying that if I had the patients that all had an unlimited budget, well, that's unlimited, I probably would have to go back close to that $25,000 mark to make it potentially make sense for me. But our goal is every year we look and say, can we squeeze this down? Could we squeeze it from 20 to 18, or could we squeeze it from 18 to 15? If there's no teeth that need to be extracted, and we have a patient that doesn't need IV sedation, and we can do it with maybe just a tissue-borne surgical guide, pretty little limited trauma to the patient. I might do that case for $15,000. I don't have to make a denture because I'm going to use the patient's old denture to convert. I don't have any teeth to get out of the way. I don't have any bone leveling to do, and I may not, have to open a flap. That doesn't mean that if I put the guide on, I don't like the way things are looking as in the position of the guide on the tissue, then I might have to do a flap. So that's never a reason to not do a flap. It's a reason to say, is this going to work out the way that I want to? But you have to have the skill set to correct with a flap if you need to make a flap.
Yeah, I agree. I use cone beam, and I've done a lot of guided surgery, and the more and more I do, the more and more I'm flapping, and the bigger my flaps are getting, and I'm just reflecting everything these days. And you would think the more I do, the less I would flap, but I'm actually going the other way. And like you're saying, I think it makes more sense when you're taking teeth out and putting implants in. The less guided dependent you can really be. I think if there's no teeth, or if you're doing singles, guided makes a little bit of sense. So how are you getting your angles just right, and what kind of pickup are you doing? You I know do some lecturing for Glidewell. You probably use them for your prosthetics for your final, but you have a local lab you work with to help out for the provisional?
Sure. So all of my, immediate stuff and conversions and sort of interim prosthesis that we have to use a denture is made by my local laboratory. So I encourage every dentist to have a good relationship with their removable technician, because he's your sort of liaison between the lab side and what you're going to be doing in the mouth. And none of my stuff is exotic. We take impressions just like we do anything else. And, rather than just write on a lab script, please make immediate denture, we have a few more instructions in there for the lab technician. And one of them is, how much reduction am I planning on doing? Or if I'm not planning on doing reduction, where should I make them set the teeth? But, so we have them make, the immediate denture. We also have them make a suck down of that immediate denture. And it's, when I say suck down, it's a 2 millimeter acrylic, shim, essentially, that we will have all of the occlusal and maybe the incisal planes removed. So, it's what I call a guide to see if I put my implants here and I put my multi-unit on, will all of these be, palatal or lingual if it's a lower to the plane of teeth with my multi-unit. And I do use a little Nobel BioCare, central guide pen and put the metal, sort of curved arc in there. And that is nice because it helps you to plan out, where do you want to put your two front ones or where do you want to put your angled ones, and to get your angled ones, coming out somewhere as close as you can to where the second premolar would be. But, when you have that sort of that clear duplicate of the denture, with the window hollowed out on it, you can just put that right up there, and then we leave the pallet in on the upper. So when you put it there, you can say, okay, I'm going to have pretty substantial angulation here to get this implant to get back within the confines of where the teeth are going to be. Otherwise, this is not the right multi-unit to use for this case. And the same thing for the molar. We make sure that has a good buckle shelf on it for the impression. And then we also make sure it goes to retromolar pad, because, you've done it enough times where my first case where, I did a lower, I was sitting there and I didn't make my ahead of time sort of bite index, and I had to level some bone in the anterior. So I was sitting there picking up the cylinders, and I'm pushing on the anterior part of the denture, which means obviously the posterior is going up. We pick up the cylinder, smooth it down and everything, and go in the mouth. And of course, you ask the patient to bite, and all they're hitting is the two premolars in the back. They're grinding, and then you get down to the, where there's only 2 millimeters of cylinder left, and you realize you've made a pretty drastic mistake because you didn't index the lower correctly, and now your occlusion is never going to work out for the temporary. So there's pitfalls, but I guess that's why everybody goes to multiple courses and has to review it several times, maybe from a couple of different people, or multiple times looking at videos to say, I get it, but you're a laboratory technician. If you have one that's done this for the surgeon in the area, and it's kind of funny that, my laboratory technician and I started doing this together, and it actually expanded for him from there, that now all the surgeons use them because, he got very good at it, but doing it with me. So that's a whole new business for his lab. I would say, 3 days out of the week, one person from his office is out at either the oral surgeon's office or a prosthetist office or another general dentist office doing conversions. So, it can be mutually beneficial for the dentist and also the local laboratory technician. But we do everything with the local laboratory technician until we get to the PMMA stage. So when I get the final set of teeth set on the master verified cast for my initial conversion, I don't give that to my denture guy to convert into a PMMA. I send that to, as you said, I like Glidewell because Glidewell provides a lot of opportunities for me to teach dentists. So I send that verified cast and wax setup to Glidewell, and they just put that on the tabletop scanner, and they scan the prosthesis, and they scan the master model, merge those together. And about 2 weeks later, I get back a PMMA with the cylinders inside of it, pink and white, and we screw that into the patient's head, and that's the plastic version of the wax setup. That's typically molar to molar, sort of relationship. And the good thing about the PMMA is it's a great way for the patient to test drive, this prosthesis. You can make whatever adjustments you need to on a PMMA for the occlusion. They're not biting their lip. Their, vowel sounds are coming out okay. You're happy with the way that the occlusion is on the prosthesis, minimize the cantilever sort of occlusion back there. And when they're satisfied with it, and I'm satisfied with it, is when, I tell Ms. Smith, I'm going to rob you of this nice set of teeth because I need the lab to now copy this in porcelain. But, anything that you're unhappy with, I need to know now. I'm totally happy with the way that your bite is, but if there's other issues that, you need to let me know, because we need to either go back to the wax setup or we need to move forward and go with the porcelain teeth. And, the good thing about the PMMA is, because it's just one piece as well, right? There's not going to be denture teeth that pop off of this, because it's not that they took a PMMA and then they slapped denture teeth on top of it. It's actually just a milled piece of plastic. I've had a PMMA up against a BruxZir bridge for almost 16 months just as an experiment to see what would happen here. And, it's wearing, but it hasn't broken yet. Let's put it that way. But it's a nice temporary. In fact, the patients hate to give it up because it's so slick and so smooth that when you put the conversion back in, obviously now it's got less teeth on it because there's no cantilevers on the conversion. And, like, God, this thing feels like it's a, rough piece of coal in my mouth. And I'm like, yeah, that's what you had. I'm not robbing you of it forever, just about 3 weeks. And then Glidewell will copy mill that into the final zirconia product. If for whatever reason you had zero adjustments you needed to make on PMMA, you could just pick up the phone and say, take that digital file. I'm sending you back to master model so you can make sure the cylinders get screwed into the prosthesis correctly. But just mill me a, BruxZir implant bridge. And I'll say, no problem. We'll hit print and it'll start milling it out of the block. We'll test it on your master model and send it back to you. But cost effective wise, I mean, I paid my local laboratory technician, the cost of essentially an immediate denture. Now, he's not processing anything, but he's got to go through the process of setting teeth and wax for me on a triad rim. So whatever that costs, $300. I mean, that's not an unreasonable cost right there for me to pay for my local laboratory technician to do that for me. But the savings I get on the back end are huge because, a BruxZir bridge at $3,000 now goes down to, I think, $1,895. So you're now going to get a PMMA and a BruxZir bridge for less than $2,000. So I just don't know how I can beat that, for my patient, let me put it that way, and for the bottom line health. So, for us, we typically budget around $5,000 for implants, multi-units, dentures that we're going to convert, the PMMA and the final. So, you add all the implants up, add all the multi-units up, add up all the stuff. It's a rare day that it's more than $5,000 to do all that in our practice. Now, have we had where we did a wax setup and Miss Smith said, "Well, this is perfect. I want you to turn it into my next set of teeth." And we said, "Yeah," we make her the PMMA. And then she's like, "Well, doc, I'm really not happy with the way this canine is twisted or whatever." So then we have to go back to the wax setup and move those teeth around. At that point, I will charge the patient, $300. That's what Glidewell will charge me to make another PMMA. So he said, "Well, we had to move some teeth around and, we need another PMMA." No problem, doc. Send us back the new wax setup and we'll mill you another PMMA, but that's going to be $300 from the laboratory to you. So we pass that cost along to the patient. But we're very clear with the patient. There's a lot of things that we can donate to the case, which is typically my time, but I can't donate things that now require additional funds. And we just tell the patient we're only really charging you what the lab technician has to charge us, which in this particular instance is $300 extra. So I think there's room for everybody to be happy in this. Doctor, patient, specialist, everybody.
Yeah, I agree. Now, you're talking about cost. That's obviously a big one, and that's why I do my final BruxZirs with Glidewell. I use my local labs like you're doing. The other part in that is the implants. What type of implants do you like for these cases? Obviously, you want something really aggressive threaded, but you've got to keep one eye on the customer and one eye on cost, is what I've heard 1,000 times from Dr. Howard Ferran. So, how are you keeping that one eye on the costs and one eye on the customer with the implants? What do you like to use? Sure.
Well, I've used 17 different implants by now. Some I like better than others, and I'm a mini implant guy from sort of birth here, or my sort of first jump into the pool with implants. So I like that aggressively threaded design. I like something that produces high initial stability. So implants that have that active sort of design to me are appealing to me because that's how I use them mostly, because I like the concept of immediate load for these cases right here. So to use something that doesn't have that aggressive thread pattern, it may be the implant that you like, but it may not be the appropriate implant for a case like this. Now, it doesn't mean that it couldn't be an appropriate implant for somewhere else in the mouth or somewhere else. That's a different application. But, I went through the MISH continuum as well. And now that the Hahn implant is, the official implant of the MISH Institute, it's designed by Jack Hahn. That's the guy that sort of, gave me a lot of training on fixed hybrids and all the failures that he's had. And when I say failures, mostly, just limitation of the materials, the plastic. So Jack's history, or Dr. Hahn's history, is that he's the guy that sort of came up with the tapered implant, the Bell replace and then replace select. And, the third version is the one that carries his name, the Hahn implant. But it's an aggressively threaded implant because he likes to immediately load everything. I'm talking even in an extraction site, single tooth. But he has the skill set in his hands to make that work. Sometimes that works for me, sometimes it doesn't. So I'm a little cautious when it comes to that. But nonetheless, I think you got to find a home, a manufacturer that supports you the way you want to be supported and provides you a product at a very reasonable cost. And speaking of Howard Ferran, I think there was an article, I don't know, maybe a year ago, so what's the difference between a $400 implant and a $100 implant? And, the answer the guy came back with that wrote the article was $300. And on the surface, I agree with that. I think there is some value to using a company that supports you and, makes swapping out sizes or dealing with a product that didn't come out the way you wanted to correctly. But for me, Glidewell has provided that as well. So I enjoy the Han implant. I like placing it. I think it does all things I need to do. If someone needs to investigate an aggressively threaded implant, then that's a good one to go with. At a street price of $160, it's a pretty cost-effective implant as well. When you bundle it by buying it, and I say in bulk, probably the way that most doctors I think do at this point, buying 30 or 40 at a time, you're gonna see additional savings on the price as well. But the kicker for me was now that I use the Han implant, when I send my stuff to Glidewell for prosthetics, I get another 20% off, and it's not because it's Dr. Patel sending the case. They don't care whether I send them a case. They get 10,000 cases going in and out of that laboratory a day. It's offered to everybody. So if you wrote on a lab script, Phil, that I had like this BruxZir implant bridge, and I'm sending it to you over Han implant, well, immediately that cost from $18.95, they take another 20% off of that. So who doesn't want to save another 20%? So this bridge now goes down to $16.95 or $15.95 or whatever the final number is. But that's for any product, whether it's a screw retained single crown or a custom abutment and crown. So the screw retained crown from Glidewell is $299. If that would be over a Han implant. So when I do it, when I look at the lab bill, it goes from $299 down to $240. So $60 is lunch for the staff one day. So it does help the bottom line. But I think people just have to pick an implant that they like because of the company that supports them in the end. So that's how I'll leave that one.
Yeah, I've got about 4 or 5 arches in the process right now with the Han, and I actually really like the active threads there. I'm a big fan of aggressive thread and high primary stability. I think that's kind of underrated with some other people or other systems. I'm a big fan of getting that high torque at insertion, and
sure.
So far the cases have been going great. I've got a couple removable. I've got 3 or 4 fixed going with them, and really like it. I've done a lot with Implant Direct. I used to use Nobel pretty heavily, and I've tried some others, but the Han's been really great. I've been very, very pleased with it. So I have nothing but good things to say with that.
Yeah,
and it's compatible with some other systems too. It's compatible with that.
Oh yeah,
with that Nobel Active or interactive system, which that's the system I try to stay within. So I've got some compatibility there with some of the parts and stuff, so that helps with keeping stuff on stock. And like you talk about, having that overhead always there. If you're in a system and at least you've got some compatibility there, you're less likely to run out of parts that way, I guess.
Absolutely. So you're right, and it's made right there in Irvine, California. If you're ever in that area, I would encourage everybody to go visit Glidewell, because your jaw will drop. It is not what you have in your mind, which is there's stone and dust and just nothing high tech. It's like going into a NASA work area. There's just rows and rows and rows of computers and CNC machines. And if you went to where they actually make the implant, you would be totally blown away that this exists right here in the middle of an office park. So it's a top-notch facility that really prides itself on making a high-quality product at an affordable price. Now, Jim Glidewell really is the guy that has that mantra. How can we wake up and make a better product and have it cost less for the dentist, so the patients can win in the end as well?
Yeah, I actually last time I was out in California, I called my buddy Dr. Sia Bai over there, and he gave me the tour of the Glidewell facility, then also the implant manufacturing facility, and it's first class. I've toured Nobel and Implant Direct and Glidewell also, and the they're all there in California. And the Glidewell tour was really neat. It was neat to see where the implants are made, and then the implant prosthetics are made, and then the private office there and the teaching facility, and then they're constantly improving that place all the time. And there's you understand the vast depth of the cases that they see there when you go there. They do a lot of dentistry, so it's definitely impressive to see. What kind of courses are you teaching? I know you're doing a lot of teaching with them. Are those at your hometown, or are they in California? Where are the courses you're teaching? I know you do a lot of courses yourself, and some of that's through Glidewell. But is it in North Carolina, or where are the classes located?
Sure. So I have a hotel style course. It's not really an introduction to implants, but I would say it's probably geared for doctors that have taken a couple of courses, and for whatever reason, the implant system is still collecting dust on the shelf, and they need to have that confidence or figure out what's going on. Why can't I move forward and get this part of my practice right there? So that's sort of around the country. Obviously I teach it at Glidewell as well. It's a 2-day course. But the course, which is really the flavor of this topic today, is the full arch course. And that's the one that, really fills up the quickest. My next one's in Charlotte, in my home state, the first weekend of October. But that one is sold out. There's no more room in that one, and rightfully so, because as more and more dentists start to say, well, how can I get involved? How can I figure out this is for me? Or how can I work more closely with my surgeon to ensure that I don't have 12 visits after he places the implants? Because it goes back to the same thing. Whether you're doing the surgery or not is one thing, but you still got to deliver the patient some sort of prosthetic in the end that's on top of the implant. Then you get frustrated really quick if you have 12 visits for your part of the pie, and if your part of the pie was only $10,000 and you had to cover a lab bill that maybe was $5,000, you're like, no, that really wasn't worth it for me to spend this many visits with Miss Smith to end up with very few dollars in the end for my office. So I think it's going to be that way for all the courses. That this one's probably going to be the one that really probably perks the ears of most doctors, because this is sort of the push button or the hot topic right now. But the other parts of what I do is, I teach some with the Maxi courses around the United States, which is a great venue, and then just other sort of main podium spots as I get asked to do that. But here it seems like things coming to waves, and the last 2 or 3 months has really been going to other doctors' offices where we will schedule, the cases like we talked about. Like, you might call me up, not that you would, but a doctor similar to you would say, hey, Dr. Patel, I'm really excited about embracing full arch dentistry. I got a case coming up, will you come stand over my shoulder? And that's been the last, 4 courses I've had where that's what we did. We just went to the doctor's office and sort of handheld them through the process of making sure their patient was taken care of properly, and that we went through the thought process before we, went to go to the surgery to say, do we have everything planned out to make sure that this is a good idea for the patient, a good idea for your skill set, and will give you a good, sort of understanding of what it's going to take to be the surgeon and the prosthodontist at the end. So that has really started to take off as well. And I call that my sort of the U-Place course. But it's a great way, because now you have the confidence of, someone standing behind you or standing in your corner to help you say, hey, we may want to consider this or consider that. And, I usually bring my stock of implants. So if we have sizes that we don't have, or a multi-unit that we didn't bring, I'll have that with me. So then I can say at the end of it, we used 6 of my multi-units, they're whatever, $150 each. So it's a good way to get involved, feel like you got some real, real learning out of it, and see the value of all the little things that maybe I've learned along the way to say, Doc, I noticed you didn't have this, or Doc, you didn't have that. I'm glad I brought it, because, now you got to use it, we got to do the case. And some of it might be as simple as, a Lindemann drill. It's not in the surgical kit, but I wouldn't want to practice implant dentistry without a side cutting drill. But the number of dentists that I go to help, it's amazing that I don't see a side cutting drill. I'm like, well, you guys must be way better than me at getting the trajectory absolutely perfect with the pilot, because to try to correct it with an end-cutting drill, as you know, Phil, it's a difficult task. The drill's going to want to go where the first hole was made. So there's little things like that all of us could share. Really, my goal is to say, let me share with you what I did incorrectly, so you can learn from my mistakes, so you don't have to repeat that on your patient and have to figure out how to dig yourself out of a hole.
Yeah, because you're going to make mistakes, and hopefully you can, like you said, learn from other people's and learn from yours quickly, because the goal from all this is to deliver high care to patients and in a way that, is profitable and reduces stress for everyone. I mean, that's the goal. And, but sometimes there's easier, harder ways to get there. And, you just want to take the path that's best for everybody. So that's very encouraging that you have multiple avenues. People can come see you, or you can have, come work over people. And I think that's great. What MaxiCourse are you helping partner with?
Well, I had the privilege of working with Dr. Iyer, who happens to be the president of the AAID. So I did last year. I was asked to do MaxiCourses in Asia, which was India, Sri Lanka, and Abu Dhabi. And this year, Dr. Minichetti's got a course in Vegas. So I'm going to teach one module out there for him, and then hopefully the one that Dr. Iyer has in New Jersey, I'll have some 2018 dates. But, whether you do a MaxiCourse continuum, or whether you do one of Dr. Resnick, who's got his courses with the Mish Institute now, that continuum, something that gives you that good base knowledge. And, Dr. Resnick is extremely knowledgeable, and his course through the Mish Implant Institute is set up over, 5 weekends, either in Orlando or in Vegas. And that's a really, really good course because he's updated it to reflect, sort of a little bit more contemporary approach to implant placement and implant prosthesis. And also he's got a great course that he offers, I think, twice a year on implant complications, and that's something that, most people don't talk about, right? You go to see a lecture and everyone shows you all their, oohs and ahs. And then you go Monday to your office and you realize that, not everything is an ooh and an ah. Sometimes it's a holy crap, but when you get to see that, you realize that you're not, out there by yourself. And, this is maybe what you might have needed to have to help not make that mistake. So, I think that's a great way to sometimes teach is that, I showed plenty of my cases that are, you could consider a failure, or you could consider that, could there have been a better way to solve this problem? Or, was the treatment planning process correct? And the answer is no, it wasn't. But, it happens to us every day, whether it's a composite or whether it's something as exotic as a full arch. But we have to deal with it, right? So, and that's why it's called practice. I mean, we practice on it, and, you don't know what you don't know. And, I certainly don't want everybody to feel like I'm trying to oversimplify and sell it. I really don't want to sell anything. I'd rather no one do an implant if they don't feel that this is for them. But, the mentality that you have to be a periodontist or have to be an oral surgeon to place an implant, I think is incorrect. I mean, I think it's like everything else, should dentists be doing root canals? And I'd say, well, if you feel comfortable doing it and you think you can identify, all the canals in this molar, then great. But if you feel like this needs a microscope, then that's why we have our specialist down the street who, that's what he does all day long. And some things make sense for us to do, and some things make sense to punt to the specialist. So, and I never want the core message to be, all implants should be all done by general dentists. No, that's certainly not the case. But I think there's a vast majority of them that probably could get done by, surgically minded general dentists.
That's taken the proper time to do the training and has the passion for it, and all that. I mean, it's definitely just like anything else. You've got to learn to progress and move through the proper sequences. Now, I know I've stolen a lot of your time here. We'll wrap it up here shortly. I'm actually going to take the MaxiCourse this fall with Dr. Minichetti, so I look forward to seeing you down there in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I'm going for my AAID accreditation over the next couple of years, so I'm going to use that as a platform to, work on my associate and diplomate status one day. But definitely looking forward to that course and meeting you there, and then looking forward to hopefully coming to see one of your all-on arches cases. So, any closing thoughts about how people can get a hold of you, or maybe a good place to see you? You have a website that talks about all the teaching you're doing, or how would people track you down if they want to come learn more from you?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm very free with my email, so I respond to that pretty well. Don't have time to write a novel back to anybody, but sure. The easiest way to reach me is just to send me a quick email. My email is my name, Paresh Patel, PareshPatel, DDS2, like the number 2, at gmail.com. So Paresh Patel, DDS2 at gmail.com.
Well, you're definitely a very giving professional with your time and your talents, and I think everybody respects that about you, and have definitely enjoyed talking with you. Look forward to seeing you this fall and maybe seeing you at one of your courses. So appreciate you spending the time with me, my listeners. Today, we'll get this up on the podcast soon and keep everybody updated with what you're doing. So appreciate you taking your time with us today.
Oh, no problem, Phil. It was a pleasure talking to you. I'll see you in October at the MaxiCourse in Vegas, and I think everything will move forward for general dentists, move forward for implantology, and move forward for the patient.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about, just moving it forward and being a part of this exciting time in implantology. So thanks for spending your time with us today, and look forward to seeing you.
All right.
Take care.
Okay, thanks, Phil. Bye.
Bye-bye.